Discipline is often seen as a restriction, a harsh limit on our freedom. But what if first told you it's actually the key to unlocking a deeper, truer sense of freedom? That the more committed you are to your discipline, the more space you create for peace, clarity, and genuine choice in your life? The paradox is powerful. Through structure and self-control, we break the chains that keep us stuck. Stick around because understanding this shift in perspective can change everything, turning discipline from a burden into your greatest ally in living freely. The paradox of discipline and freedom. Discipline often conjures images of restriction and control, yet paradoxically, it is a fundamental pathway to genuine freedom. When individuals impose structure upon their lives, whether through routines, goal setting, or ethical boundaries, they create an environment where choices become clearer and more manageable. Without discipline, impulses and distractions tend to dominate, making it difficult to pursue meaningful pursuits or uphold long-term commitments. The freedom derived from discipline isn't about doing whatever one wants in the moment, but about shaping the circumstances so that deeper, more fulfilling choices are possible. It's the difference between being a slave to immediate pleasure and being free to achieve personal growth, stability, and peace over time. This paradox hinges on the idea that discipline fosters peace within the mind and life. When routines are established and habits are formed, the mental clutter of constant decision-making diminishes. For example, athletes who adhere to strict training schedules often speak of a sense of calm and focus that emerges from their disciplined routines. Instead of wasting mental energy during each decision, whether to work out or rest, they follow a predetermined plan, freeing up cognitive resources for creativity, problem-solving, or relaxation. In this way, discipline clears the chaos, creating a calm that allows for internal freedom. It's like clearing a cluttered room. Once the mess is managed, you feel lighter and more capable of enjoying the space. Real freedom also stems from discipline because it cultivates independence and resilience. Taking control of one's habits and decisions reduces reliance on external circumstances or fleeting emotions. Consider people who develop disciplined financial habits, saving a portion of their income and avoiding impulsive spending. They gain control over their economic future, and that control becomes a form of liberation. When setbacks do arise, the disciplined individual can persist because their routines have instilled a sense of stability and insight. Conversely, a lack of discipline often results in chaos and dependency, stuck in cycles of regret and remorse, magnifying the illusion that total freedom means doing whatever feels good without consequence. Ultimately, embracing discipline isn't about sacrificing freedom, but about understanding its true meaning. It's the freedom to choose a life aligned with one's values and long-term aspirations. Discipline provides a framework that makes this sort of freedom possible, offering clarity amid life's chaos. If you can master your impulses and commitments, your life becomes less about reacting to circumstances and more about consciously creating the experiences you desire. In this light, discipline is a tool, not a prison, that grants access to a deeper, more authentic form of liberty. Understanding self-discipline as inner mastery. Self-discipline isn't just about enforcing external rules. It's about cultivating mastery over one's inner landscape. When we talk about self-discipline as inner mastery, we're recognizing a profound paradox. The more we develop control over our impulses, habits, and emotions, the freer we become. This might seem counterintuitive. How can restraint lead to liberation? The key lies in understanding that true freedom isn't the absence of restrictions, but the ability to govern oneself intentionally. Mastery over our thoughts and actions means we stop being slaves to momentary urges, allowing us to act in alignment with our deeper values and long-term goals. This kind of discipline acts as an internal compass, guiding us through chaos and distraction toward clarity and peace. When people build this inner mastery, they don't feel trapped by their desires or external pressures. Instead, they create space for intentional choices. For example, someone who practices regular discipline in their routines, say, through consistent exercise or mindful meditation, finds that their mental clarity and emotional resilience grow. They are less swayed by fleeting pleasures or distressing impulses because they've learned to pause, observe their reactions, and select responses that serve their highest good. This internal control diminishes internal conflict, making life feel less like a series of battles and more like a harmonious pursuit of purpose. Furthermore, the process of mastering oneself fosters a deep sense of peace. This peace isn't about avoidance or suppression, but about acceptance and alignment. When your internal state is disciplined, you're less likely to wrestle with guilt, shame, or regret that often accompany chaos and unrestrained impulses. Instead, you develop a steady confidence rooted in self-knowledge. Consider the example of a person striving for financial independence. Through disciplined budgeting and delayed gratification, they gain not only tangible resources, but also a sense of inner calm. They feel empowered, knowing they're in control rather than controlled, and that sense of mastery over their choices translates into serenity that radiates into other areas of their lives. Ultimately, self-discipline as inner mastery signifies a conscious evolution, an ongoing journey of refining our mental and emotional autonomy. It embodies the idea that freedom is found in discipline, not despite it. When we harness discipline as a skill, we unlock the capacity to steer our lives with intention and purpose. We discover that genuine liberation arises from inner control, an inward strength that turns chaos into clarity and craving into contentment. This inner mastery is a gift that endlessly enriches our ability to live fully and authentically, transforming discipline from a burden into the most dependable pathway to peace. Discipline as a path to personal authenticity. Discipline is often misunderstood as a restrictive force that limits spontaneity, but in reality, it creates a space where authenticity can flourish. When we cultivate discipline, we're essentially forging a relationship with ourselves that allows us to peel away false layers built from societal expectations or transient impulses. It's about aligning our daily actions with the deeper truths of who we are beyond momentary desires. For example, someone committed to regular exercise not only improves their physical health, but also develops a sense of integrity with their body, an authentic expression of self-care that feels true because it's consistently practiced rather than fleeting. The paradox here is undeniable. In establishing boundaries and routines, we grant ourselves the freedom to be genuine. Discipline acts as a filter that weeds out distractions and superficial pursuits, making room for a clearer understanding of our values and passions. When discipline is integrated into our lives, it elevates our ability to act consistently in accordance with our core beliefs rather than succumbing to external pressures or momentary whims. This consistency builds a sense of inner peace because there's less internal conflict, fewer actions that betray our true selves. It's in these moments of alignment that authentic self-expression feels natural and effortless, not forced or contrived. Connecting discipline to peace might seem counterintuitive at first glance. Yet, the stability that discipline provides creates a resilient mental landscape. When your routines reflect your genuine interests and convictions, you spend less time wrestling with internal contradictions. Consider a person who has disciplined themselves to pursue a passion for art instead of succumbing to social pressure to choose more lucrative but less fulfilling careers. Over time, this consistency fosters not only skill, but also a profound sense of authenticity and peace. Their life, rooted in purpose rather than performative trends, cultivates a calm confidence that stems from knowing they are walking their true path. Therefore, discipline, rather than shackling us, becomes a vessel through which we express our authentic selves, free from the chaos of distraction and superficiality. The role of discipline in overcoming inner chaos. Discipline acts as a stabilizing force amid the turbulence of the mind, transforming chaos into clarity. When thoughts swirl uncontrollably, emotions run unchecked, or impulses threaten to dominate, discipline emerges as a tool to carve out structure and predictability. It's not about restricting freedom, but about creating space within the mind to breathe and think clearly. By establishing routines, setting boundaries, and cultivating habits, individuals can tame the inner voice that screams for instant gratification, distraction, or escapism. This process doesn't silence emotions or desires. Rather, it channels them into constructive channels, fostering self-awareness and self-control. The paradox at the heart of discipline's effectiveness lies in its ability to produce freedom through constraint. It might seem counterintuitive that setting limits can lead to liberation, yet history and psychology demonstrate this repeatedly. When we do not impose discipline, whether through habits, schedules, or mental boundaries, the inner chaos intensifies. Without it, procrastination, anxiety, and impulsiveness thrive, trapping us in cycles of indecision and regret. Discipline provides a framework within which the mind can operate with purpose rather than being tossed about by every whim or external distraction. Over time, this consistent structure develops into a sense of internal peace, making it easier to navigate challenges and uncertainties with resilience. Turning inward, discipline fosters a sense of mastery over oneself. As routines become ingrained, the mind begins to settle, reducing the mental noise that fuels stress and discontent. For example, daily meditation, regular exercise, or adherence to a work schedule may initially feel like burdens, but they soon become anchors. These anchors create predictability and instill a sense of control that counters the unpredictability of inner chaos. Over days, weeks, and months, the relentless fussing of a restless mind diminishes. The quiet that emerges, the calm that settles in, is often mistaken for freedom itself. In truth, it's the result of disciplined effort creating the conditions for inner peace, which in turn amplifies real freedom to focus, create, and simply be. An illustrative example is the difference observed in individuals who maintain disciplined practices versus those who do not. Many people find that when they adopt disciplined habits, such as journaling, practicing mindfulness, or maintaining a structured day, their mental clutter clears. Their thoughts become more precise, their moods more stable. It's not just about avoiding chaos. It's about transforming the chaos within into a manageable, even purposeful, energy. That process reveals a fundamental truth. By willingly imposing certain guilts or constraints on ourselves, we open the door to a broader, deeper sense of freedom, one rooted in mastery, self-awareness, and ultimately, peace. Discipline and the expansion of possibilities. When people think of discipline, they often see it as restricting or constraining, but in reality, it acts as a catalyst for freedom by shaping the boundaries within which creativity and achievement flourish. Discipline is the structure that channels energy into productive paths, allowing individuals to master skills, overcome obstacles, and reach heights that might seem impossible without such self-control. For example, athletes train unwaveringly, adhering to strict routines and diets. Their discipline isn't just about restriction, it's about expanding their capacity, building endurance, strength, and resilience, opening up new possibilities they wouldn't be able to access otherwise. At its core, discipline creates room for peace because it alleviates chaos, mental, emotional, and physical chaos that can come from unresolved impulses or scattered focus. When you set routines and uphold commitments, the mind isn't constantly battling against distractions. Instead, it operates within a clear framework, easing frustration and stress. This sense of order and predictability cultivates a quiet confidence because it's built on trust in one's own consistency. Discipline, paradoxically, grants us more space to breathe and feel at ease, because we aren't perpetually reacting to chaos but are instead guiding our actions intentionally. The peace that results from disciplined living fosters a fertile environment for new opportunities to emerge. In calm and clarity, bigger dreams become tangible. Furthermore, discipline acts as a form of sovereignty over oneself, which in turn unlocks freedom in other areas of life. Consider entrepreneurs who stick to disciplined schedules, dedicating time for learning, networking, and strategic thinking. Their capacity to innovate and adapt hinges on their self-control. Without discipline, spontaneous choices dominate, often leading to scattered efforts and unfulfilled goals. When discipline is ingrained, possibilities multiply because setbacks become opportunities to refine skills rather than insurmountable barriers. It's not about denying desires, but about aligning desires with long-term visions, thereby expanding what's possible through deliberate action. Discipline becomes the mechanism that transforms fleeting interest into persistent progress. The idea that discipline constrains freedom is a common misconception. Instead, It functions as a powerful tool to eliminate limitations that stem from our own inconsistent habits or impulses. With discipline, obstacles such as procrastination, distraction, or self-doubt diminish. The result is a broader horizon where innovation, mastery, and personal growth unfold naturally. Freedom becomes less about escape and more about mastery, the capacity to shape circumstances and elevate oneself beyond immediate circumstances. Discipline, then, is not a chain but a key. It unlocks doors to realms of possibility that would remain shut without the steady, purposeful effort it requires. Willing sacrifice, the key to genuine freedom. Discipline often evokes images of restriction and control, yet its true power lies in the paradox of willingness. When individuals choose to impose limits on themselves, whether through routines, commitments, or moral boundaries, they open the door to authentic freedom. This acceptance isn't about losing options, but rather about clarifying priorities. For example, someone committed to regular exercise might sacrifice leisure time or social outings. At first glance, this seems limiting, yet it cultivates a sense of mastery over one's body and mind, ultimately leading to a profound sense of liberation. It's a conscious decision to sacrifice short-term pleasures for long-term well-being, demonstrating that true freedom often demands the courage to say no in the present. Willing sacrifice transforms discipline into a source of peace. When actions are aligned with a person's core values or long-term goals, internal conflict diminishes. Instead of being tugged in different directions, disciplined individuals experience a steady sense of purpose, which reduces anxiety and chaos. This internal harmony acts as a stabilizer amid external uncertainty. Take the disciplined parent who sacrifices sleep or personal time to nurture their children. Over time, they discover a deep fulfillment and peace that fleeting pleasures cannot provide. The act of self-denial becomes an act of love and empowerment, reinforcing the idea that discipline is not a burden but a pathway to stability and serenity. The link between discipline and freedom hinges on the concept of intentionality. When sacrifices are made out of choice rather than compulsion, they cease to feel like loss and become acts of empowerment. They create a framework within which decisions become clearer and actions more effective. In practical terms, an entrepreneur who maintains consistent discipline, resisting distractions, managing finances meticulously, or adhering to a vision, can operate with greater confidence and control. This deliberate focus minimizes the chaos of impulsivity, making success and personal growth more attainable. The willingness to embrace discipline, therefore, shapes a life where freedom isn't about having endless options, but about having the clarity and strength to pursue what truly matters without unnecessary hesitation or regret. In a deeper sense, this willingness to sacrifice illuminates the core of human agency. It suggests that freedom isn't the absence of constraints, but the mastery over them. Just as a sailor relies on the winds to steer his ship, a disciplined person uses their self-imposed boundaries to navigate life's challenges smoothly. Instead of feeling trapped by rules or responsibilities, they experience freedom through mastery, stability, and peace. When discipline is rooted in voluntary sacrifice, it becomes a powerful act of defiance against chaos. It affirms that true liberty is found not in endless choice or avoidance of effort, but in the confident acceptance of what is necessary to sustain a meaningful and balanced life. Usnavnoy, Rise Jill 7. Discipline is often misunderstood as a form of self-restraint or harsh restriction, but in reality, it acts as a foundation for true freedom. When we establish clear rules and routines, our minds and bodies align, reducing chaos and indecision. This internal order creates a mental space where choices become deliberate rather than impulsive, leading to a sense of liberation from the overwhelming pressure of unstructured life. For example, consistent daily habits, such as exercising, setting priorities, or managing time, free us from the burden of constant decision fatigue. We no longer waste energy on trivial debates about action plans because discipline has already built a framework that guides us effortlessly toward our goals. Connecting discipline to peace might seem paradoxical at first glance. How can restriction foster tranquility? But it is precisely through discipline that peace is cultivated. When we know what to expect from ourselves and how to handle challenges, anxiety diminishes. Instead of reacting with confusion or stress, disciplined individuals approach difficulties with calm clarity, having established routines that prevent chaos from infiltrating their lives. Consider a person who maintains a consistent sleep schedule. They experience less agitation or fatigue, which translates into a more stable emotional state. Discipline reduces the mental noise of indecision, allowing a person to feel more centered, secure, and at ease with their circumstances. On a practical level, discipline acts like a personal autopilot that steers us away from distractions and temptations. It sharpens focus and enhances productivity, which in turn amplifies this sense of freedom. When tasks are completed efficiently and goals are steadily approached, the feeling of being trapped or limited dissipates. For instance, disciplined entrepreneurs often describe their work as freeing. They have established routines that manage their workload and free their minds to innovate rather than get bogged down in micromanagement. In this sense, discipline isn't about deprivation. It's about removing unnecessary barriers so that our true capabilities can flourish, granting us more genuine independence and autonomy. Looking at personal growth, discipline provides a safe structure for experimentation and resilience. It offers a scaffold as we test boundaries, make mistakes, and learn from failures, without descending into chaos or despair. This process ultimately leads to a profound sense of mastery over oneself. When discipline is nurtured, it becomes a reliable companion that enhances mental clarity and emotional stability. As a result, the individual gains the freedom to pursue passions, adapt to change, and navigate life's uncertainties with confidence, knowing they possess the inner discipline to steer their ship through both calm waters and storms. In essence, discipline isn't about restriction. It's about clarity, control, and ultimately, liberation. When we embrace discipline, we clear away the chaos and distractions that cloud our mind and hinder progress. This focus creates space for peace to reside within us, because we're not constantly battling ourselves or external chaos. The paradox becomes clear. By committing to small, consistent choices, we gain the power to shape our lives on our own terms, opening doors to true freedom. You see, discipline transforms the overwhelming jumble of life into a peaceful, purposeful flow. It's the steady hand that guides us through storms and keeps us anchored in our values. That's real freedom, the peace of knowing you're in control, moving intentionally toward your goals. If this resonated with you, stay tuned. First, we'll be sharing more insights on how discipline can help you craft the life you want. Remember, every step toward discipline is a step toward deeper freedom. Keep pushing forward.